Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon session on health and safety in the offshore wind industry. The G+, the Global Offshore Wind Health and Safety Organization, and I personally were really delighted when we were asked by BWO to moderate the session. And since a guiding principle of G+ is to bring together the offshore wind industry to pursue shared goals and outcomes, it's really an honor to be here today. My name is Beate Hildenbrand, and I'm Manager Offshore Wind at the Energy Institute, supporting the G+ in its secretariat. And as a theme of this year's conference is Zukunft Offshore, so the future of offshore wind. And while there are very important discussion topics, obviously, on the agenda for today and tomorrow, but I think health and safety is really an important key element for a sustainable success of the sector when we think about the future. In the next 45 minutes or so, we would like to reflect where we are and what we have achieved in health and safety for the sector, but also really want to discuss where we can do more. So focusing on where can and should we do more together and collaborate in this competitive environment. And where are the barriers? Where do we need to invest more effort into when we think about Vision 2050? So with this session, we hope to give the right impulses, and I'm delighted to have such a powerful panel with me today. And I would like to introduce first Tove Lunde, the Vice President, Safety, Security and Sustainability Renewables at Equinor. Chris Streatfeild, Director of Renewable Safety, and Fritz Wiedemann, Director of Oord Offshore Wind Germany. I also would like to ask the audience, if you have any questions for the panel, please, there's a chat function, so use the chat function to ask your questions. And we have something prepared for discussion, but I'm always happy to try to integrate any questions that come from the audience. So let's start with the here and now. And Tove, I would like to ask you, with your experience and your background in your role, what's your take on the health and safety performance in the sector, being involved in projects, operations across Europe?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Good afternoon, and thank you for that introduction, Beate. And first of all, thanks to the BWO for the invitation to speak about a topic that is really close to my heart. Health and safety has been a key pillar of my career and my leadership. I grew up in the aftermath of the Piper Alpha disaster, and have been fortunate to work for companies with a very strong safety culture. And that is something that I believe that we've been successful in transforming and us into the offshore wind sectors. Most of my 32 years, I've been working in oil and gas, working with operations. I've been offshore. I worked on projects and contractors, and joined then our renewables branch in 2017. And I think that kind of with that background, with the experience, with the safety culture that we've been utilizing for 50 years in the Norwegian continental shelf, and after a few years globally, I think that for us to be able to take that step into a new sector, I think that background has been absolutely key, and to me, for this industry as well. Being able to collaborate across the industry, really extracting that knowledge and learning that we individually have from wherever we come, bring that to the table, and to kind of collectively improve, pull in the same direction, has brought us where we are. Tomorrow, as G+, we are launching the statistics for 2020, and it's a very great comfort for me. I'm very pleased with with the results that we have achieved over the past years, with a year-on-year reduction in our safety results and to a record low this year on performance. So I think that to your question regarding where we think we are on performance, I think we have done a lot. We've improved a lot, but we also have a lot to do. There's more to gain. There's more to learn. There's more to kind of standardize and still work together. And I'm delighted to kind of have that opportunity to talk about that during this session. So I guess that we will come back to that further in the questions to come.
We will in the next topic stream. But maybe also from your take on where we are right now from your perspective and your background.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bea. And also thank you to BWO for the invitation and the chance to talk about safety in our offshore wind industry. Yeah, briefly, from my career perspective, that shows also my experience with safety in offshore. I started my career as a helicopter pilot flying offshore for the German Navy. And then I was heading the QHSE departments for a shipping company working in the oil and gas for 10 years. And thereafter, that was 2011 when I joined a construction company building wind farms, obviously for offshore wind. And also I can only stress what Tove just explained. It helped me so much, the experience from the oil and gas with a kind of setup for standards and for procedures, etc., to dive into the offshore wind industry and also to help there to transform into a more professional industry. There were so many hard learnings in the beginning, and but we improved a lot. And over the last years, also with some professional organizations like GWO and G+ and IMCA Renewables that helped a lot to align between the industry and the players to come up with a really good safety performance and safety guidance for all parties involved. Yes, there's still a lot to do. There are still a few gaps to close, let's say, and it becomes very obvious if you go to new countries, to new markets. But I think we'll discuss that.
Yes, we will come to the gaps and the future work. Absolutely, Fritz. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. The third panelist, please. Yeah. Can you, with your background in from the risk management training consultancy background, to complement this introduction?
Yeah, thank you, and again, thanks for the invitation today. Yeah, I mean, I've approaching 35 years experience in health and safety, original in a steel engineering, construction, manufacturing background, so predominantly from an onshore environment, and unfortunately early in the career, fatalities and major injuries were accepted. They were unfortunately just part of what went with the territory. Never acceptable then and not acceptable now. Since about 2008, full-time in the renewable sector, mostly wind, but also looking at some of the other technologies going forward. I'm currently an independent HSE consultant, looking at risk management training consultancy, and recent relevant experience to this is we're part of a project team under the Wind Harmony project, which was looking at harmonisation opportunities in the wind sector. And I'm also a member of national and IEC health and safety and committees from that point of view. I'd agree with a lot of Fritz and Tove's points there. I think, you know, the industry is doing very well. There are significant opportunities, gaps, if you want to call them there. If we were to do a comparison between the wind sector and offshore wind, where we are compared to other sectors 20, 30 years ago in a similar stage of growth, I think we are doing much better. But the expectations are far greater in 2021 than they would have been 20, 30 years ago, whether that's corporate governance, risk management, whether that's, you know, just more responsible companies and management. Health and safety is not one of those extra components to think about and annoying compliance. They are an embedded part of the risk management and, you know, so business culture of any responsible project and culture and wind farm operation. So I think the wind industry is doing a lot. The major stakeholders are doing a lot, but unfortunately, health and safety professionals, we have this concept of many others of continuous improvement, we can always see areas and opportunities for improvement. And I would very much concur that I'm not saying Europe are perfect and European projects are absolutely, the best in the world, but I think some of the bigger challenges will come with the emerging markets, and maybe some of the other technologies start to combine into the wind sector. So doing well, but lots of improvement opportunities.
No, that's great. So I think first of all, I think it's a really strong panel to discuss this today, and also Chris, really interested from the experience received in the project Wind Harmony. Of course, obviously, what I would like as the next topic to really talk a little about more is about what is available, best practices, what in industry, and where are we with harmonization, and what is the benefit of harmonization, with then obviously to see where are, you call it opportunities, what needs to be done that enables harmonization even better across the sector. So I don't know, Fritz, if you would like to make a start here in where we are with operations and harmonization regarding health and safety standards in the sector.
Yeah, a pleasure. Harmonization and standards, as I mentioned already, the organizations who really work hard on it to create guidances, to give guidance to the industry and all players. I mentioned already IMCA and I mentioned G+. And for us, for example, when we try to include those standards and guidances as much as we can. So we rely, for example, completely on, when it comes to diving operations, we look into the IMCA documents, and this is for us a guidance, how to audit a company, how to accept a diving company, etc. when we work with subcontractors and suppliers. And the same applies to dynamic positioning, and working at height is for us a G+, the ruling guidance, let's say. And it's really already written into our procedures and processes, and so that we don't miss anything when it comes to standardized working. But yes, going abroad, and the first thing you want to do is to check for compliance, and you start to review all norms, standards, and laws in each country. You notice in some countries which have never been near the oil and gas, for example, industry, or not even offshore wind, that you will not find any guidance for you as a contractor to work there. And then it becomes very complicated, because then you will have very specific discussions to agree on certain progress, and to agree on certain conditions, and that makes it very complicated. So I'm very a big fan of standards and standardization to make life easier and to get the acceptance of our employees and the workforce, and by that we do not miss anything and do not create any incidents or accidents. That is for me the most important.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, and it gives again opportunities if not many things are in place, but also a lot of confusion and not a streamlined approach. Tove, what's your take on this experience from best practice, and what are, for example, areas where the best practice, for examples for best practice, or what's your experience from harmonization and the benefit of it?
No, I think I can echo very much of what Fritz has just elaborated on. I think we've done a lot through organizations like the G+, where we've kind of put in place best practice that's actually kind of based on incident statistics and incident learning. So kind of taking what we learn from ourselves and try to kind of rectify and put something in place to fix it, I think has proved a good strategy. But again, as Fritz says, I think the variation that you find going globally and crossing borders is huge. It's even huge in Europe, from kind of very, very well regulated areas to areas where are in the infancy of offshore wind and renewables. So kind of to me also then, or to us as a company, first of all, with the background that we have, particularly ourselves, I think that a sound governance in place and a way of working that has been kind of developed over many years has been kind of just crucial in my mind. I think you can go into most country in the world and apply what you can and what you've done, and you come out pretty okay. But kind of having the strength of the G+ and the procedures and the GWO's training standards and bring those along with us, I think is absolutely key as well. It's something about credibility in the industry. After a certain time, and as you go, you find those brands around, and it's credible in a way, and it kind of invites trust. And I think it's a standard you can bring, and at least you kind of have a starting point. That I think is absolutely critical. Representing Norway as well, we are at the starting point with our regulator now to kind of put in place the regulations for how we are going to organize the offshore wind sector. And our regulator very much point at the G+, the GWO, kind of the industry associations that have already been put in place and realize that value. And finally, also, I would say that there's a lot still on the standardization of regulations. I think as an industry, we can do a lot, but we are missing an important part, and I think that's regulations. And I think that that is an area of standardization where we have a lot more to do. Our workforce is global. So kind of crossing borders should not kind of have an impact on the safety. And what a key learning that we have from oil and gas is that systems, tools, requirements that should be similar because of the standard. It drives higher standards in safety.
And obviously, Chris, you were majorly involved in the project Wind Harmony, and the aim of this project was really to analyze what's available on standards, industry standards, and harmonization. How harmonized is it? And I know, because being involved in this project, G+ was referenced quite a lot in having a lot of topics covered with industry standards for offshore. So from your experience in the project, and what are the barriers? What is the stopping? I mean, we talked already, we mentioned regulatory things. Obviously, what implementation of the standards is key, because the standard itself doesn't make anything more healthy and more safe. But what's your take and experience from the project?
I mean, I think the project overwhelmingly concluded that the industry has a lot of good baseline standards in place, and we have the key stakeholders who are in place to do the majority of what are called the further development work. And obviously, with GWO and G+ and others who already have an international footprint, that will be very helpful. I think one of the key findings, sort of linking back to Tove's in terms of the regulatory, was actually when you look at the major developers, the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers involved, actually they know more about the industry and safety and standards than many of the actual national regulators and local jurisdictions. So I think one of the key findings, this was obviously the Wind Harmony was focused at a European level, but I think this is going to apply internationally, is we need to open up those lines of communications to inform and educate and involve the wider stakeholder community who aren't always involved in some of the operational. And I don't want to name particular countries, but certain countries, because it wasn't set in their country, it wasn't invented here, there's a degree of, well, we want to use our local standard. And particularly when you look at offshore wind and oil and gas standards, we need to be very careful of not repeating and reinventing the wheel. Okay, yes, there are different risk profiles between oil and gas and and should we say offshore wind, but there's a lot of similarities and a lot of synergies. So, you know, if there's an existing standard and it works, let's use it. If it needs slightly adapting to meet the wind profile, then we can add to it without necessarily starting afresh. Sometimes we have to, well, whether it's working at height, some of the standards GWO, we have to create an industry specific solution or a process, whether that's a technical design standard or a procedural process standard. So I think we've got the building blocks there, we've got the right stakeholders involved. I think we can do more to educate and involve particularly new countries and new participants. And actually the re-engagement by a significant part of the oil and gas sector in recent years, I think is going to be very helpful there. And I think very important message, again, is just, let's just not reinvent that wheel. We've got good baselines, and sometimes we just need to be reminding people and telling people why it's a perfectly good standard to use. Just because it doesn't have the word wind in the title doesn't mean it's necessarily not a good thing, you know, solution there. So good baseline, but you know, opportunities and engagement going forward.
What is, or did it come out of the project, or what's your personal view on how can we collaborate better together, or who are the stakeholders we need? Is it the national regulators? Is it the national trade associations who help us to get the message through?
I think it is variable. So I think a part of this culture, and that's why one of the key recommendations based at a European level was up to the European Commission and say, look, you are the ultimate responsible party for the regulatory framework within Europe. We would like you to facilitate the industry to be able to facilitate those conversations between national regulators, because we're seeing a number of situations where very responsible projects and companies are approaching local regulators and they're saying, look, we've worked in these other countries. These are the standards we are using. They work. Why can't we use these in your area? So I think it would be helpful. I'm slightly cautious about a wind health and safety regulation or directive, but I do think the wind, shall we say, the health and safety regulatory community, and that's where it's a bit more complex offshore because we've got more regulators involved, a slightly different profile between the marine, the aviation, the civil construction, the building construction fraternity. So I'd like to see the European Commission and other regulators come together and be talking more formally with the likes of GWO, G+, IMCA and others to try and avoid these conflicting local regulations.
Chris and Tove, may I ask, do you agree? But this is really a lengthy process. Huh? I mean, we have so good guidances, and by experience, because we learned it hard, we know how we could do it maybe best in some areas. But then to go and to approach a regulator in a new country and to tell them, please have a look, and maybe you could incorporate it, adapt it within a year or two, seems to be nearly impossible sometimes, huh? And then you start already projects in an environment which is difficult.
It has to be. We have to do both. What I'm saying is, as health and safety professionals, we can't wait for the regulations and the regulators. We have to make sure that the people, the operators, are made safe. So we do what we do as responsible companies and projects to put in the best practices from a health and safety in our projects. Ideally, in parallel, we've got the engagement with the regulators to make that work more efficiently.
Was just about, Fritz, do you have, was about to ask you for your take, and especially background in shipping industry. You say it's a lengthy process and the time that's costly, and sometimes it's also makes it unsafe operations if in the time you're negotiating. Do you have any examples where it actually worked in practice, or a good way?
Maybe a sidestep, because coming from the shipping company and shipping operator in the past and working for oil and gas, there obviously it was in a way easier because we have international standards. Yeah? We have the IMO and the ILO, we have the MLC and MARPOL, and that rules already. What is the appropriate training? How often do you have to do drills? How do you deal with waste, etc.? And that is already international. And each country, I think 180 plus, or maybe even more than 200 accepted it. And there you can really build on a standard, and that makes it a lot easier. And obviously, I wish maybe in the future, in a few years' time, we might have this for all countries aligned. And what is the standard for working in offshore wind? That would be then, but that is in paradise and in an ideal world. But in shipping, it's already there. And then we have now the challenges of the interfaces, project teams coming on board. Do they fall under the regime of ship management and all those rules, or is it something separate, like more like passengers, etc.? But that is something we work on, and also there we align more and more, and everyone knows exactly what kind of trainings are required and how often they have to redo it.
I was coming to you. And I mean, obviously, Fritz, we are talking today also about the future, so we can be a little bit of visionary and make a wish. Tove, anything from you?
I was looking for where to put up my hand, so I just did it physically today. No, I just wanted to comment on that one, because I think that's a fair and very good comment, and I think how is a good model looking like? In Norway, we've had what we call a three-part collaboration for many years in the oil and gas industry, and that's kind of between the industry, it's between kind of the workers and the regulators, and I think that's actually been quite successful, and I think we've had something of the same in the UK. And if I may just kind of praise Trevor Johnson a little bit, going out of the UK health and safety reg right now, but I think that has been a good collaboration between the industry, the way he has kind of driven us as G+ to kind of collaborate together, but also kind of with the interface to the authorities. I think actually many regulators could learn something from that. At least it's something that's been working quite well from my perspective.
I think we will all miss Trevor, who, for those who don't know, has retired in HSE in the UK. But Trevor was also very good, and I think his vision, and hopefully still the vision of HSE UK, is to link up with other European and international regulators to work together, because obviously industry working together is good, but there is a limitation if they're not met by the other interfaces, like you said. Thank you very much. As a next topic, I would focus maybe a little bit more on also safety culture and what are the lessons learned from other industries. So we already spoke about interfaces, how can we implement, how can we harmonize, but is there anything from, we have here background from other sectors like oil and gas, shipping. Is there anything in terms of health and safety, terms of safety culture that we can learn in offshore wind? And I mean, obviously we are in the transition that we have more companies coming from other areas into offshore wind. So what do you think might be the impulses we get, or what should we actually look and take for offshore wind? Tove, if we just continue with you.
Yeah, no, I think they are many years ahead of us, and in many ways, and have kind of, as I started with, also had a lot of hard learnings. That in my mind we cannot afford. We just cannot afford as an industry to have those learnings. So we need to kind of take the learnings that others have experienced previously and try it. So I'm very open to kind of what's worked before, and as Chris also says, doesn't matter who's learned it, we need to grab it if it's of interest and value to us. I'm thinking when it comes to culture, And again, the area I know the most and the best is of course the oil and gas in Norway, and I think it's the collaboration with the unions, with the safety delegates that we've had, and the way we've been involving then the sharp end better, and that's something that we've also been discussing in the G+. How can we further improve and strengthen the outreach and the engagement, empower the sharp end? We don't come far if kind of what we develop is for the management tables, right? We need to kind of onboard all our workers in this. I think the oil and gas other industries have a lot of good tools that they've used. I think in particular also one thing that is very critical and key in my own organization is the right that everybody has to stop unsafe work. I think that if everybody think and take that mandate, I think it shouldn't be the barrier, but at least it's the last barrier. So I think that's something on the cultural side that I think we need to embrace and make sure that we kind of appreciate and not see as something negative.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, and if I may add something, and it is a very good example, Tove, because when it's about safety culture, and we're talking about culture, and also in different areas of this world, even for us, it's just to enroll and to enhance and motivate people to speak up if they see something which might look dangerous, or where they see a risk, to introduce this, for example, in some areas of Asia, to speak up and to talk to your superior, or even stop a job completely because you have some doubt. That is already a challenge, and we all have to work on this to carefully get even those guidance rules and support into the workforce in other areas. And yeah, that is it's not so easy. We all know.
No, absolutely, I agree. And we don't even have to go that far internationally. I think there are already quite differences in European cultures and how they speak up, how they communicate, and how they want to be told something without knowing why shall I do it this way and not another way. So I think that's what we see in our incidents we collect in G+. It's really the root cause. It comes down to human factors quite often, not following rules, not following regulations, and the question is why. So I think that's really something to invest and to use tools that are out there, and they are also coming from other sectors. And again, like Chris said, why not using something that has been proven to work in other sectors? Any addition from you, Chris?
No, I think I would agree with most of those. I think something I've probably changed my mind over the last sort of decade or so is I probably thought the industry needed to frame its own version of step change, a brand or something like that. And I probably think that's because of the complexity of the global industry and the supply chain. I think I'd be very cautious about trying to create yet another offshore wind branded health and safety culture. Just in my own sort of day-to-day sort of consultancy role, I've got about 40 or 50 different models and tools that are available out there. They're all fine. They all talk about leadership and commitment and engagement and cooperation and quarter. So we all know what safety culture is. We all know the basic framework. What we've got to do as an industry is be sufficiently confident and capable to then adapt that both at our own national level, because the projects will need to develop their own version of that, but especially when we're going internationally. And I think Fritz and Tove's, the local cultural dynamics cannot be underplayed, and I don't think we can solve that by a simple brand or statement. That is just about understanding the people, understanding those cultures. And slightly going off aside, I'm slightly cautious about the term safety culture. I prefer risk culture. Good organizations are not just good at safety, They're good because they're good at diversity issues, equality issues, risk management issues. They're just good companies because they have that framework of engagement, cooperation, and coordination. So in a way, it's very hard to define. It's very easy to see good companies because they're just good at what they do, not just at safety. So the more we can drive that continuous improvement and bring up the safety culture as part of that, the better.
And I think with safety culture, with culture, again, we are already vocabulary that might be the culture, what word you use best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also with the national adaptation, you need the buy-in from the stakeholders. So collaboration with the regional stakeholders, I think, is key as well in getting their engagement, their buy-in, and make them heard to really make a step into the right direction. Just looking at the chat, either I'm not doing the chat function right, or there is no questions from the audience, but it might also well be that you're already answering all the potential questions the audience might have. Actually, coming already to the final 10 minutes of this session, I would like to put out a question for you, because we are talking about the Zukunft, the Vision 2050. So what would be your area you think industry needs to focus on to make a real step change? And talking about the vision, so it can be quite visionary. So really, what looking forward is key, Tove. And if I may ask you for your making your statement on this.
Yeah, let me first kind of start with priorities. I think from my side, kind of to improve further and really kind of work towards a safe and healthy workplace in this industry. I come back to collaboration in the industry and standardization. So I think that's just kind of fits with the overall topic of this conference then. But when it comes to kind of maybe something game changing on the technology side, I think there's a huge and untapped potential on digitalization and automation. Removing people from exposure, automate and use robotics for the most exposed work. I think we have a lot to gain still. And just to bring an example, in 2018, we received the Renewable UK Safety Award for introducing drones for inspecting of the blades, and that's become quite standard. But I still remember the kind of figures or the numbers behind. We inspected some 264 blades with that drone. And that actually eliminated rope access personnel for 352 personal transfers back and forth. And we know transfer is one of the high risk, or at least an area where we have a lot of incidents. And 176 lifting operations from the vessel to the turbine. And lifting is kind of the number one incident category that we have. So the more we can do to that, to actually physically remove people from the most risky operations, I think that has a huge potential.
Yeah, thanks, Tove. And I mean, the pace industry is going and technology is going. Actually, yeah, there are more and more opportunities, potentials coming up.
Yeah, and I think that the one and a half last years with us all becoming digital ninjas, I think that just shows the potential.
Absolutely, we are able to change. Chris, your statement on this.
Yeah, I think without going back to my sort of original background, I originally trained and qualified as an occupational hygienist, so I have a strong interest in occupational health issues. Understandably and rightly, the industry has focused on safety issues. They're the obvious and sensible things to do, because we're obviously wanting to prevent people being killed and seriously injured. But if we want to have a successful and sustainable industry, we've got to be thinking about creating the right workplace environment, and not just from a manual handling musculoskeletal, which is important, but I think COVID, and I know it's been quite pleasing, we haven't mentioned COVID today, but I think COVID has reinforced the importance of mental health and psychological risks and things like that. And how do we create the right working environment that is not just physically safe, but is efficient and comfortable and enjoyable to work within? You know, I'm not saying it needs to be all beanbags and things like that, but it does need to be an environment that we want to recruit people into. And that's, I'm just adding a sneaky extra, that's why I'd like to see more diversity in terms of people coming into the sector. We are a little bit male dominated, well, quite a lot male dominated in some of the roles or whatever, but not just in terms of male, female, in terms of age profile, background, companies. I want to see much more diversity of people, companies, and cultures coming in, because that's where we're going to get the innovation. That's where we're going to get the new ideas, things we haven't thought about. So, you know, I'm going to sneakily too. Occupational health and well-being and diversity would be the things I'd like to see really pushing forward.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for making that point. I think it's really crucial. It's challenging also to look into these more soft issues in industry, emotional well-being, things like that. It takes a long of time and research to find the right tools, again, for different cultures, but it's very important. Yes, Fritz, your last statement.
Yeah, very interesting. Coming from Tove's vision, high tech, more or less, and talking about Chris when it comes to occupational health. For me, the biggest challenge, I think, in the coming years is really to deal with subcontractors, subcontractors, subcontractors. The requirement for local content is so huge. Now we are expanding and going even more and more international, and to find the right way to prepare the local companies. Sometimes they are small, just medium size, and to make them aware what we expect from them. And not just to dump 1,000 pages of HSE requirements, but to explain, to help them, to develop, to train them, to raise the awareness. That is a challenge, and I know that also G+ picked up on it. So we want to start there to find a way how to, in a way, roll it out and to get them involved more and more and at an early stage. And I hope that we'll find a good solution for that to work even far away, not in Europe anymore, in a very safe way. That is my hope and my vision.
Yes, thank you very much. And it's actually quite beautifully making the circle round like I started. And G+'s aim is really to bring together all the industry, but also relevant stakeholders across the world. Sounds very big, but obviously I think collaboration is key and communication is key. And we work hard with our members to develop industry standards, to work on new design ideas, safe by design, a key topic. But I think really the reach out into different countries, different regions, but also into different tiers of the industry is really something we acknowledge that we need to do more and we want to do more. That's why it's such a great opportunity today to have this forum. And I hope that we might have reached out from the audience to get more information, to get in contact, get in touch, to ask us. So G+ also accessible via our website, email address, and we can also link to all the different stakeholders. And I think it's really to work together with national association organizations to see where we are and where we can improve together. So thank you very much. Very big thank you to that panel. It was a pleasure to talk to you today. And also thank you for the audience staying with us. I know we have not even a minute for the final session of this afternoon, I think, or the summary session of this afternoon to start. So I let you go to Stefan to sum up the last sessions. Thank you very much and have a nice afternoon and day. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.